Go. Hey, thanks for the countdown, man. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cracking the Software Engineering Job Search session. The way I would like to hold this session is I want it to be very interactive. I want people to reach out, ask any questions that they may have during the session itself. The reason why I'm putting up a session like this is because I would have loved a session like this when I was in my job search phase. I was talking to a few of you all before the session itself, and a lot of your pain points and a lot of your questions resemble the exact questions that I used to have. So I think we are going to have a solid session. I will try to get done with the session in about 60, 70 minutes. And the rest of the time, everyone's case is going to be a little different and specific than the other one. So feel free to just ask me anything, and I'll try to answer all of your questions to the best of my ability. Cool. All right. So before we get started, oh, by the way, people on Zoom, if you have any questions during the session, I will make it a point that after every major topic, I will stop for questions so that people don't lose context of the topic that was just being talked about. And just feel free to raise your hand on Zoom. I think that we have that feature, right? Yeah. Just raise your hand, and once you do that, then we can take all those questions in, and we can just take it on from there. I guess we don't have audio capabilities, so they'll have to type in their questions, right, on the chat. Type in questions so they can unmute themselves. Perfect. So type in, unmute, whatever works for you all. Cool. So let's set the agenda for the session. I'm just going to briefly go over my story. I was on the other side of the podium. Actually, it's been a while now. It's been 3 years or 4 years that I've graduated. But I don't think that things have changed that much. So I come from a position of empathy. I'll be talking about personal projects. I'll be talking about resumes and LinkedIn, how to optimize those profiles in order to put your best foot forward when you're applying to jobs. We'll be talking about job applications themselves. There are going to be a lot of times where you feel like you're putting your job applications in a black box and you have absolutely no visibility as to what is happening and why you're getting rejected. Because I have done that. I have applied to 100 jobs, and I used to get rejection emails 2 years after the job itself. I'm like, what? At that point, it was just insulting, man. Just give it to me quickly, right? We'll talk about technical interviews. What happens once you get that job interview, right? So we're going to break it down into technical interviews. We're going to break it down into the behavioral interviews as well. We're going to talk about salary negotiation. This is something that no one talked to me about, and I really had to figure it out. And it's a very crucial thing, especially when you get an offer. So we should definitely talk about that. And towards the end, we are going to have an AMA and some closing notes. Cool. This slide out here is going to basically show an overview of what that whole process looks like. What I've tried to do is basically divide it into 4 big buckets. The first bucket is going to be job search. How do you find the right fit? How do you find the right culture? To be very honest, in the given macroeconomic situation, don't be that picky. Not saying that you just work for anything, but find something interesting. But generally, the first job is going to be the one where the job chooses you than you choosing the job. So just make sure that you have that in mind and get whatever you can so that you build up the experience. So you start that cycle, the experience cycle, right? Second thing is, how do you actually land an interview, right? Landing an interview is hard, especially when there's so many people at career fairs who are applying to the same thing. It's just it's a little hard to stand out. So we're going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about interviewing. We're going to break it down into technical, behavioral, and stuff like that. We're also going to talk about how to prep for those kind of interviews. Having a smart way of prepping for interviews is as important as knowing what to do in those interviews. And lastly, we're going to talk about negotiations. All right. Some key highlights about what we will be talking about today. We will be talking about why handing your resume at a career fair, just doing that is not cutting it. I am speculating that most of you have been through that situation where you just hand off resumes and it's just not working out. So what exactly is missing from that resume? Why isn't it cutting it? And it's especially true for online applications. You just put it there and you have absolutely no idea what is going on. So we're going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about my failures, right? Why I failed an Apple interview. I was so excited for that interview when I got it, and I bombed it. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to dive deep into it so that you all don't make the same mistakes. That's the hope. Next, if we are going to talk about Amazon, I don't know if all of you all have heard about the Amazon working culture. It can be a little intense, to say the least, but they still teach a lot. And we're going to talk about exactly what they teach and how you can use that knowledge in your interviews and your prep. We're going to talk about islands. We're going to talk about islands and stars, more on that, right? We're going to talk about Facebook Messenger. And we are going to talk about, this is a clickbait slide, let's be very honest. But you know what? This thing actually works. 20% is maybe an underestimate for all I know. So always negotiate. And we're going to talk about tactics of how to go about that and strategies. All right. This is rule for me. I am going to make it a point that I don't feed you all generic bullshit. And if I do that, if I sound like that, raise your hand and make it a point. I want you to point it out that, dude, this is generic. It's not going to help us. Give us more specific examples. What I'll be doing, a note for myself, is I'll be backing each and everything on the slides with a personal anecdote, with personal stories. And those are like factually true. So take whatever you want to, take whatever you can, take whatever fits in your particular experience and apply it to your job search journey. Cool. Speaking a little bit about my story, just to set up the context, I came to UW as an undergrad back in 2015. Back then, I came as an undeclared major. We were in like the pre-engineering major. And that was just like a way of defining uncertainty. Uncertainty, it's just weird. I thought that I really wanted to do CS. And I wanted to do CS because of the most superficial reasons that you can all think of. I wanted to do CS because I had seen The Social Network. And I thought, damn, that's cool. That is how they built Facebook. And I really thought that that is how real life works. It really isn't. But still, that is something that really got me into it. I came here, and after that, once I came here, I was like, dude, there's so many people. A, B, everyone is super smart. And C, I realized that CS or the depth in which the CS program itself goes is something that I was not that interested in. And later on, I found informatics as something that I really wanted to do because I was more interested in the application aspect of software engineering than the theoretical aspects of it. So that was my reason for informatics. It gave me the perfect opportunity to be at the cusp of, that's the selling point, right, of informatics, that it's the cusp of people, tech, and business. I think they still have that Venn diagram, if I'm not wrong, during the new orientation for students. If they don't, that was a sell for me. So that is what I did. I'm an international student, they call out. So if there are any specific questions regarding that, especially when it comes to like logistics about applying to jobs, finding jobs that will actually sponsor your visas, I can take on that later on as well. But since that is a much more specific version, we'll be taking on later. Cool. Let's tackle the first thing. How do you actually land an interview? And the answer is it's hard, right? And it's hard because everywhere you go, you have stuff like you need experience, you need networking, but boy, oh boy, when you're like first going into that zone, you don't know what to talk about. Dude, I'm really bad with small talks. I just cannot like hold a conversation just out of thin air. It's hard, right? How do you just like go up to a stranger and just start talking about, hey, give me a job by the end of it, right? Like, how do you frame that conversation? Well, what I found was networking is a lot like dating. Not that I dated a lot in college. Still, from experiences of my friends out here, I realized that it's a lot like dating. It's about showing interest without being desperate, right? And it's about showing yourself as the most interesting person in the room. Realize that they also have a vested interest in you joining that company, right? Be very, very clear about the skills and the abilities that you are bringing to that job as well. What I personally did or thought was that, hey, these guys are going to be paying me money. These guys are going to be taking care of a lot of things. I'll be able to pay my student loans. I should just be thankful. But the thing is, that loosens your confidence a little bit. So what I would suggest is know your own skills, be confident about it. You don't need to know a lot, but whatever you do know, always focus on quality of the content that you know, right? And stand out as an interesting person in the room. Networking, things that you can also leverage are things that are not related to software engineering. Realize that the people that you're talking to, especially recruiters, they're also like humans at the end of the day, right? They also go on vacations, they also go on trips. So you can start off a conversation like that. You can take the randomest of things, start off a conversation like that, and then delve deeper into the job aspect of things. There is a personal story that I have regarding this, and I will dive deeper into that in the later section. Let's really talk about this. I really want to talk about this. Let's talk about the vicious cycle of experience. The age-old problem of, in order to get experience, you need experience. But like, where do I get experience from? Like, I'm just a freshman. Like, how do you expect me to have worked on like 3 fantastic projects that have made the most amount of impact in this world, right? Well, the answer is you just have to hustle. One thing that I really want to focus on are personal projects, research projects. You all now actually have no reason to have an idea and not see it through or not execute it. ChatGPT-3 is available. I used it over the weekend to build an extension, a VS Code extension for LinkedIn. And this is like 2 weeks ago. The amount of time that I would have spent, which is easily around 3 hours, I cut it down to 30 minutes because I did not have to look for documentation and it was already giving or filling all the templates in. So the thing is that when it comes to coding, you already have a lot of leverage that you can use. You already have ChatGPT-3. You already have GitHub code space. You can do so many things and you can use it to your advantage. So what I would highly suggest is that if you have an idea, if you have personal projects, just build it out. The importance of having something tangible that other people can see and use is immense. This is what I did. This is what worked for me. So it is really, really important to not only know what binary search is or what a linked list is, but how do you use it in a real life scenario? How do you cut down the search time from a DB to showing something on the front end? It could be as simple as building a class roster. No one cares. But till the time people can actually use that thing, it is awesome, right? You can take advantage of the no-code solutions. You can build an iOS app, you can build an Android app, build whatever, but build something. That act of building is really, really important. I cannot emphasize it enough. Talking about building, I also want to talk about personal websites. I really think that this is something that I really should have worked upon. GitHub is great, but if you're able to like host your own website on GitHub pages, which is extremely simple to do, if you don't know how to do that, ask ChatGPT-3, don't ask me. It probably has a better answer for that. But use that, and then you tell someone that, hey, you can check out my projects at my website that I built. It just adds so much to your credibility that you don't only have skills, but you know how to implement them. You know how to create impact, right? So take out a weekend, really get down to it, treat it as a project that you'll be graded upon. Have an accountability buddy that can like hold you true to seeing that project through. Build a personal website. It does not need to be fancy. It just needs to have some content that shows your projects. That's it. That's all it is. Let's also talk about research projects. I think, Shivansh, you are in HCD, right? Funny story, when I was in my junior year, that is when I really pulled up my socks, because in my freshman and sophomore years, I was still trying to like find my way out. Like I had no idea what is going on. It was very overwhelming. And in junior year, that is when I really, really got serious and got into the work of it. So I networked. I talked to a lot of people. I had to like step out of my comfort zone and have those conversations, just like in dating. That is what I'm told. And I found that HCD itself has something known as DRG research projects, direct research groups, right? That is the first thing that I did. And a friend of a friend was heading a project. And that led to me finding an opportunity that not only was research, it gave me an opportunity to use my software engineering skills that I was able to get in Info 340, which is the client-side web dev class. Whoever is in informatics will know that. Great class to have, because again, it gives you the skills to actually build out a web app. And it is awesome to have that on any kind of a resume. We built out an app that basically captured all the wasted or supposedly wasted food from the dining halls and redirected it to the food shelters across Seattle. And guess what? We built it it was backed up by the UW Sustainability Fund. I was part of the project for 6 months. It was a paid research job. Not saying that I was in for the paid part of it. I was only in for the experience part of it. So don't expect that all research projects are going to be paid, because you're in a university. But always be on the lookout. One advice that I would really like to give is that generally showing up and talking to people is going to work better than sending cold emails. That is what I have found out. I think UW has a research database where you can like check out all the researches that are in progress, but I did not have a lot of success with it. So I would highly recommend reaching out to professors that you have taken classes with. That is what worked with me. I took a class with my stats professor, and that was my first research opportunity, because I just used to go to him, talk about something, or every time after the class, just that 10-minute conversation once a week. And that led to me finding a research opportunity with him. So that face-to-face connection, that has a lot of value in it. Use it. There was also another story when, this is a funny one. One of my friends was interviewing for Google, and he had asked me to like bring a latte to him on one of the floors of the CSE building, right? I lost my way because that building is a maze to me. He was on like, I don't know, 5th or 6th floor. And I saw that Professor Steve Tanimoto's door was open, and I had taken a class with him, right? So I was like, forget the coffee. Let's talk to that guy. Let's talk to the professor. I knocked, I went in. I was like, hey, I took the class with you. I'm really interested in continuing your learnings forward. Are there any research projects that you're doing? It is as simple as that. Just start a conversation, right? And lo and behold, he had one. And that is how I found another research opportunity right there. So a cup of latte that I was not able to deliver led to me finding a research project. What I'm trying to say here is reach out to professors and leverage that in-person connection. That is how I found a research opportunity with Greg Hay as well. That is in my senior year. So really use that to your advantage. And once you have done that, then you go to the fish market, which is the career fair, right? I don't know how these things are looking now, because when I used to go for career fairs, that was in the pre-pandemic era. So you go in there, and I come from Delhi, right? I am used to seeing a lot of people in a closed space. But then I went into the hub Lyceum room, or the hub room where they have all the career fairs, and I was amazed. It was like sort of nostalgic. I was like seeing so many people after a very long time. It was weird. But at the same time, I realized that there's a lot of competition, right? And the recruiters, they were literally like, 30 seconds, give me a pitch, get out. 30 seconds, leave a resume, get out. I'm like, what is happening? It is so overwhelming. Like, how do you like get on pace with this kind of a thing? Well, at that point of time, you really have to figure out what works out for you. Something that I did, something that helped me land that Apple interview, was the fact that I always used to carry my laptop with me. And going back to the research projects or the self projects that I made, I always had a working demo on the laptop available. I literally pulled out my laptop and I showed, hey, this is something that I made, play with it. And that led to me finding an interview with Apple. That helped me stand out, right? It is essentially, it was not fully built out. It was just an MVP. There are like tons of edge cases that I had not even written test cases. Like whoever writes test cases in college, right? But the thing is that it was just not an idea. It was just not text. It was a tangible product that the recruiter could play with. And when Apple had this thing, they have this whole aura kind of a thing that they have to like maintain. So they booked out the entire Lyceum hall. There was no one else. And there were hiring managers sitting there, not only tech recruiters. So that is an important thing. And when the hiring manager looked at it, he was like, okay, let's do this. Let's give an interview, right? So find your own thing. Find what works for you. If this is something that works for you, great. Have something ready. Have something tangible ready to show. There's a lot of value in it. Don't underestimate the value of demoing stuff. It really helps. Tech stacks. No one who is going to be giving you a job expects you to know everything about a tech stack, or expects you to know everything about all the languages ever. They honestly don't even care about what kind of languages you're using. You could be writing code in Pascal for all I know, right? I don't know who does, but like you can be doing that. It's all about impact. What did you do? Why you did it? How you did it? How you achieved a solution to a problem? how did you manage the obstacles? Everyone loves underdog story where you were like, oh, I was faced with obstacles and then suddenly I became the hero of the picture, right? You are always going to be the hero of your own story. Remember that. Like you have to like project yourself like that, hey, this was a problem and I just like went on it, I worked on it and it worked out, right? So impact matters a lot. Something that I think I want to touch base upon is, and it's a little off from what the slide shows. Remember I told you about self projects, right? And doing well in classes that you're taking. If you do well in your classes, guess what happens? The professor notices, the current TA notices, and the opportunities for TAing for that particular class also open up. Now that is a huge bonus, right? Because at that point of time, you are going to be in a position of mentoring other people in tech, which is a lot what corporate coding is all about. You have to like mentor a lot of other people, help them onboard a lot of new things. Coding is generally going to be the easier part of the job, to be very honest. It's like managing people, managing expectations. The soft skills that are required, that is going to be harder because it is not predictable. It is not binary. It is not 0 or 1. There's a lot of gray zone. And once you're in a position of a TA, you're dealing with that on a daily basis, right? That is what worked for me. I was able to TA for Info 340 because of the fact that I did well in that class. I was super pumped for it. I was actually really passionate about, I'm still passionate about React. And that showed. The professor noticed, my TA noticed, and they themselves said that you should be taking this class, right? So let your work speak for you. It really matters. When I was a TA for Info 340, now I think a lot of you may have that question that, okay, I have these skills, but like, what do I build, right? It seems that everything already has a solution, right? You already have a particular solution that somehow caters to a particular problem. For group projects, and a quick raise of hands of who all are in informatics. Okay, so you all know about group projects. Everyone should know about group projects, but you all especially know about the pains of group projects, right? So the thing is that when I was taking Info 340, we had to like make groups for the group project. And that was a very difficult task to do because a lot of people were not coming to the lab section because the lab sections for 340 were like 2 or 3 hours long. And everyone was like, I'll do it at home. But because they were not coming in the classroom itself, there was no way for them to form groups. Guess what? Because I had taken Info 340 with an active knowledge of Firebase and React, I built out a web app that helped people pair up into groups. Now, the thing is that I had 40 students who were using my app, right? There is a problem everywhere. That is the moral of the story. It is all about finding the littlest of things and just making something out of it. It does not have to be fancy. It does not have to cover all the edge cases. It just has to be something. Just do it, right? The highlight of that project was that at the end of the day, my professor added a component to that particular project on GitHub and like contributed to my repository, which I thought was never possible, right? And he added a component to it and he extended the project. Guess what that gives me? That gives me a lot of talking points when I'm talking about my behavioral round interviews, right? I can talk about these projects. I can talk about the fact that I created a lot of impact. I touched the lives of 40 people and my professor committed to my repository. That is a big thing to talk about. So it is all about like finding those little things or little areas of optimization where you think code can really help. And with the advent of like generative code that we have right now, these things don't even take time. You already have all the solutions built out there. It's just about like, it's like Lego blocks. You just put everything together and it's like magic. It will work, right? So like take that into account. Think about that. We have already talked about that. Carry your laptop. Along with that, always carry 10 printed resumes in your bag, always. I was in that mode. I was literally like handing out resumes to people walking down the hub or something like that. I was like, hey, you want a resume? You look like a recruiter. Let me hand you a resume. You also get a resume. I was doing that. And who knows, like you never know where the opportunity is going to come from. So like you have to really put yourself out there. That is what that is what the point is. Important. Hackathons are more than free food and free swag. I did not know this. So that is why I packed a lot of food when I was like participating at DubHacks in freshman year, because like all college students, I was also very hungry all the time, right? And that is all that I did. I did not make full use of that opportunity. Now, the thing is that once I started taking hackathons seriously, hackathons are not about building out the perfect product. They're just about selling your idea. And the fact is that like hackathons like the MLH hackathon that I think is organized within UW, or the DubHacks hackathon, or there's so many hackathons, right? You can go to any one of them right? Find a mentor. A lot of companies have already like set up their stalls out there, and people out there are not recruiters. They're engineers, right? So they know how to build stuff and they know how to make stuff work. Take advantage of their knowledge. Sit with them. Guess what? When you sit with them on a particular project, you're also building a network at the same time with someone who is in the industry, right? So take advantage of that fact. Demo at hackathons. You had a question, Shivansh? All right. Sure. I'll stop for a quick second to like gather all the questions that people may have. Let's pause here because this is the next section. Any questions that anyone may have or any experiences that anyone wants to share, literally anything at all, just like people can talk, you know. Go for it, go for it.
Something to ask.
Yeah.
I've come across many where I've always held back from applying for them or like going for them because I feel I don't have enough experience or I don't have a team which can help me create something.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a problem? Probably you also face some point of time or
Finding a team.
finding a team, yes.
Work alone. I worked alone and I won twice. He worked alone once and he won.
But like I don't know if I have like the knowledge.
See, the thing is,
Right, he said you don't need to get every.
the thing is, no one has knowledge. It's a very safe assumption to make that everyone who's out there in the hackathon, 80% of the people, it's the first time for them. And it is actually the best learning ground. It's the mecca of learning outside the classroom, right? And how to find a team? Either shop around and see what projects look interesting to you, right? Usually after the first 3 hours that the hackathon officially starts, people would have started building up teams. And at that point of time, you would know what they're sort of building. And you can just like literally shop around. You can like, it's like auditing a class, right? You just walk in, you see whether it fits you or whether it works for you or not. And if it does, great. If it does not, you just move on to the next class, right? So think about it like that. I also know that there are a lot of team building mechanisms that the administrators themselves provide. So you can leverage that, or you can directly go to the administrators. You know what really helped me? I was very honest in the first place. Like I told everyone that, hey, this is my first time in the hackathon. I don't know a lot, but I'm here to learn. Can I just shadow your project? And if there is anything that I can help on, I'll help on it, right? If they do win a project, you don't have to take the credit for it, but it's all about like finding a team and working together in a collaborative environment.
Right? Can you repeat the question for people on Zoom? They did not hear you.
Oh,
what's the question you asked?
The question was, how do you find a team at a hackathon, right? It can be a little hard and intimidating to find the right kind of people in such a big crowd. So it's just about like going out there, take advantage of the administrators. They know that this is a problem, or they know that a lot of people, it's going to be the first time and it's a very intimidating environment. So take advantage of the resources that are out there. I think there was another question. I think Jake asked, why shouldn't you seem very interested? Jake, what I meant by that is that you should not seem desperate. You should be interested, of course. You should be interested in them. You should be interested about what you're talking about, but don't show it as an act of desperation. That is all I'm trying to say. Know your skills, know your worth, know what you're bringing to them, know the fact that you are adding skill to their company, and build up that confidence. It's all about that, because the person who probably will get the job or will probably like get promoted to the next round is probably going to have that confidence within themselves. So just like think about it from that perspective. Any other questions? What's up?
Yes, I think some specific skills that you want to bring on. I don't know if you're just here.
Specific skill set in a hackathon or at an interview? Sure. See, software engineering can be divided into like domains. You can be a front-end software developer. You can be a back-end software developer. You can be a machine learning engineer. You can be a data science engineer. You can be, I think those are the 4 main pillars that are out there, right? Now, the thing is, no one cares within what skills or like what exact tech stack you're using within these domains. But if you identify yourself as a front-end developer, I would assume that you have a very active working knowledge of how JavaScript or like frameworks like React work, right? If you identify yourself as a backend engineer, there are multiple languages, but I would assume that you would know the basics of data structures and algorithms, like you're strong at them and you have worked in a library like Java or Golang or anything like that, right? You have built out your own servers. So it is not about the exact skill set in terms of the language expertise that you're bringing, but it is about like in what domain do you specialize in or what are your projects specified in. So that is what matters. Does that answer your question, or is there any follow-up? Good. What's up?
As you said that you were doing research projects also, and also like having classes and all.
Yes.
So how do you manage to like do coding practice and interview practice? How those
Sure. The question is, I was doing research projects. I was doing coding interview classes, coding interview practices, and and college is obviously there. So like, how do you manage everything? You stay up late, you hustle. I wish there was a better answer to this, but the idea is that like, you need that 6 months of time and you really need to like push hard in it because everything is going to be happening all at once. And I know that we work in a quarter system and you only have 10 weeks to like do stuff, right? Grades might take, right? I can understand that, that happens. And you know what? A lot of people are very receptive towards it when it comes to interviewers and stuff. Most of the times, no one is going to be asking your GPA. They are going to be looking at what projects you have done. That does not mean do reasonably, really, I would say that do reasonably well in the classes. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, don't just like, I'm not saying follow the class, but like do reasonably well in the classes because that builds up credibility that you know the topic. But the idea is that you will have to hustle especially for 3 months. Why? Because you just need to get used to managing everything all together at once. It is hard. It is hard. Maybe what you can do is you can find a common ground between your interview practicing and the projects that you may have. Now, I don't know if you're a CS major or not, or if you have any kind of those classes, but they tend to have an overlap. What I would suggest is start early. I think that is what my biggest tip is. That is where I went wrong. If you start early and if you just do like 2 questions a day from lead code, you're already like managing everything automatically. The recruiting season generally begins around fall, right? That is when applications start, like that is when companies start hitting hard, right? So if you start in the spring of that year, you already have a lot of, you already have like covered a lot of base before like going deep into the coding interview part of it. So I'm going to be talking about a section where you can optimize your time that you spend on specifically working on coding interview questions. But let me catch that on in the later part. Anything else? Anything? Zosh, do you have anything on Zoom, or do you just want me to check?
There are 2 questions to come. Have a career break due to work authorization.
That's a good question. Rana, it seems like a very specific questions. Can I take? I'll probably take that in the AMA itself. But yeah, the good question. Let me get to that. I'll take a note of it. All right. So now we're at the stage that you have put in the hard work. You have done everything. You have gone to the fish market. You have somehow managed to get an interview. Now what? Right. Now comes the actual grunt work where you have to like make everything worth it, right? Like the amount of work that you have already put in to get the interview itself. So cannot stress this enough. You need to read Cracking the Coding Interview, period. Like that green book is the holy grail of coding interviews. I'm like, I can bet you on that. Especially when I was interviewing for Microsoft back in 2018, there are questions that directly come from that book and they just change the data. So read that book, especially the first 4 chapters, because they focus on basic stuff, not basic, but crucial stuff like arrays, strings, linked lists, stacks, queues, trees, and graphs. And once you're comfortable with these things, then you can move on to dynamic programming and recursion. But you need to have a solid understanding of these. Their solved examples are amazing. They had one question on the lowest common ancestor in a binary tree, and you have to find that. If you just do that question, it takes time initially, right? If you just do that question, the thing with these questions is that if you do one question, they give you the way of how to do 10 other questions because you already know the approach. So when you're working on coding questions, think about what approach you're using rather than like going for like solving the question itself. It's all about in interviews generally. Like, for example, if you go for an, let's see, like an interview at Meta, right? or an interview at Google, they will ask a seemingly hard question that supposedly has no answer whatsoever. Break it down. All hard problems are a composition of simpler, smaller problems. It's all about breaking it down and identifying those patterns. There is a wonderful book called Grokking the Coding Interview. And that book is structured differently. That works about like identifying patterns. Like for strings, there is a 2-pointer pattern. So if you know these patterns, you can apply them in different questions. So at that point of time, you optimize your time that is spent on coding interviews by knowing the patterns rather than going for the questions or quantity itself. But get this book like right now. Like if you don't have it, get it now. Like it's important. Best resource that I have after the Cracking the Coding interview, Blind's 75 question list. This is what I really used, man. This is what helped me like really reduce the time and be as efficient as possible. What this helps in is that it will give you breadth rather than depth. So you will be covering a lot of topics in much smaller amount of time. And the kind of questions that are in there, they cover almost everything, right? They're going to be a mix of lead code, medium, and hard questions. One thing to remember is before like tackling this can seem like a very daunting challenge because the questions are not easy for sure. So when you're doing lead code, like, do 1 or 2 easy questions just to build momentum, just so you feel good, like get that dopamine hit before you dive deeper into medium or hard questions. And don't worry about like spending a lot of time on like figuring out the question itself. It can take you 90 minutes. It can take you whatever, like set a time box it. And after that, look at the solution. But that struggle, the amount of time that you're spending in figuring out the question, that is what counts, because that is what is going to help you solve 10 other questions much quicker. But this is very important. Like a lot of recruiters themselves will refer to this particular list when they're sending out materials of like what to prep on and how to prep, right? How to prep nicely. So definitely take leverage of this. Definitely prioritize breadth over depth. What I would say is that rather than like diving deep into a topic beforehand, once you do something like, blind 75 questions, at that point of time, you will know what are the topics that you're really comfortable in and what are the topics that need work. Once you know which topics need work, that is when you can dive deeper into the depth of it and like analyze more. That is when you can use Cracking the Coding interview book, right? At that point of time, when you use the Cracking the Coding interview book, you can dive deeper into that chapter, look at the solved examples, look at what approaches work, and carry on from there. We already talked about this. We just need to identify what needs to be fixed once you have tackled the breadth of questions. Don't go deep. A lot of these coding interview platforms like HackerRank and LeetCode, they categorize questions into like types, like array questions, or they have tree questions or graph questions. Rather than type, I think they also have a version where they give you like company specific questions where like what Facebook asks or what Google asks. I would suggest doing that because what that helps in is you will be tackling breadth at that point of time. But before anything else, do the 75 questions just because of the fact that that will give you a lot of familiarity with a lot of questions. You will see, oh, I've already seen this question before. I know how to do this. Or it will be some variant of a question that you have seen in that 75 list. That 75 list is very possible. If you do like 3 questions a day, that is taking you about 25 days to do that thing. That is like less than a month. So it does not take a lot of time, but it will really add a lot of value. So like, think about it. Cannot stress this enough. Find a buddy and practice. I don't know how, I don't know when. Post it on a Facebook group. Do something. You are at UW. This is primarily a tech school. Someone is interviewing at any given point of time. I can guarantee that. Find that person and practice with them. If you think that person, for example, let's say that you identified that trees and graphs is something that you need help in, or that is the area that needs to be fixed. Go talk to a person that specializes in that, or like that, for whom that's a strong suit, right? Find someone who is like a little better or like is a little more comfortable in that topic than you. That will really help you consolidate your own concepts. And I whiteboarded that thing with my buddy, right? And that really helped me in my Microsoft interview. What happens is that when you enter an interview room, right? I don't know how it is happening these days. I think a lot of it is virtual now, but like at my time, it used to be like whiteboarding for on-site interviews. It is very daunting to start, just like take a sketch pen and start writing on a whiteboard. like I forgot how to write, like I did not understand what my handwriting looks like. Like, I don't know how to write I was having a hard time like naming variables, which is probably the toughest thing that any programmer does ever, to find a good variable name. So just get in that habit. It is very important to be comfortable writing on a whiteboard. It is very important, because that will really reduce the amount of stress that you're going to be feeling on the day of the interview. The more you do this, the better it is. There are a lot of other resources. There is a paid one called Pramp, I think. You can utilize that. They give you a buddy, or like they match you with an industry professional who will be interviewing you, just like you will be interviewed in a real life setting. So Pramp is something that I would highly recommend looking into. They match you up, and that really works well, right? Since you're in college, you don't need that, because you already have a lot of people that can do that with you. But that is something that an industry professional can help you with, right? Important. No one wants to do this, right? No one wants to fail at an interview, but this is going to happen. I took a Snapchat interview 6 months ago. I aced it. Like, I was so like, there are a lot of times, when you like take a midterm or like take a final, and when you have done well, you like really know it, right? Like, I'm going to be acing this thing. And then you suddenly get like a 3-3 or a 3-2 on it, and you're like, what just happened, right? That has happened with me for Snapchat. Like, I did not get any feedback. Everything they said me, oh, you were really good, you should try again next year. I'm like, what? Right? So things will not make sense a lot of times. That is what I'm trying to say. Don't take it personally, right? Don't have that fear that, hey, I'm not good enough. It's fine. Like, everyone has good days, everyone has bad days, right? Everyone has good days, and even then you will not be accepted to a job. And it is because of the constraints on the company's side and not your side. So know this, and just like keep on pushing forward. It is much easier said than done, because after that, like I somehow found the LinkedIn profile of the interviewer who interviewed me, rather than going through the recruiter because he was giving me generic answers. I went to the interviewer and asked him, can you please tell me where I went wrong? And he's like, no, you did not go wrong anywhere. I'm like, then what? Right? But that is bound to happen. That is what I'm trying to say. These things are bound to happen. If you can, please emphasize on getting feedback. Feedback is the thing that is going to help you the most. Don't accept no and leave it at that. Don't just leave it at a no. Ask why was it a no. Ask for detailed feedback. And in the email, do write that this is going to help me in my career development journey. Please give me feedback, right? Be very polite about it. But that is actually the most essential thing that is going to be helping you. And the fact of the matter is, the more interviews you take, the more confident you get. It is just as simple as that, right? Now let's talk about the Apple interview, right? And why I bombed it. So this was back at like when I was in my junior year. I was like in that interview zone. I was like doing that, 3 a.m. nights and stuff like that, because I had to like do classwork as well, because you guess what, you go to college as well while finding jobs. So I got the interview. I got super excited, because it was like, Apple is also very like, like they're very like Apple about it. They give you a card and they write, you are invited on the card, and then they hand you out. They make a very big deal about it. They just don't say like, they don't just send an email. They're very Apple about it, very like polished about it. So I already hyped it up this much, right? Then I went to one of their offices in Fremont, actually. It's called the Touring Building. I was sold on the name, man. Like, Touring Building? Like, are you serious? Like, okay, great. I walk in, I see the Apple logo. I'm like, wow. Now I go forward. I wait for the interviewer to come. He says, we have 2 questions planned for the day. He asked the first question. It is based on hash maps. I do it within like 10 minutes, where I have to pretend that I don't know and I'm like arriving at the answer. Important skill to have, right? If you know a question, don't just like run to the solution. First, give the unoptimized approach, then give the optimized approach. It shows that you know how to evaluate different decisions, how to talk about complexity variations, like if you prioritize space over time or time over space, what are the constraints, what are the trade-offs? Talk about those things. And if you have seen a question, don't get happy. Like it will show on your face. So don't get happy, right? So the hashmap question was nice and easy. I was like, okay, let's do this. I was like, momentum is on my side. Let's do this now. He has a second question, and I got stumped. I had not seen that question ever. It was like, yeah, that was the warm-up question. I'm like, woohoo, okay, that was a warm-up question. And the warm-up question took like a good solid 20 to 30 minutes to like properly answer and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool. And that is when I realized, okay, oh, this is Apple. So these are the kind of questions that they ask. I like put them up on such a big pedestal and I made such a big deal out of it that I psyched myself out. This is the important thing to learn from here. The why is that I psyched myself out. When you're going to an interview, I don't know what works for you. You can meditate, you can go for a run. For me, a run helps. You can dance, you can sing, you can listen to music, you can do whatever that helps you focus on just the task at hand, right? When I went back, I walked back from Fremont to Utah because I was just like, damn, dude, I had such a great opportunity, but like I missed it or I messed it up, right? I was just thinking that like, if I had just been a little more chill about it and thought about it from a cool mind, I would have been able to write the answer myself itself. And the interviews really want to help you. They really want you to succeed. Like they will be dropping hints here and there everywhere. Like he was dropping hints on a whim. I'm like, damn, I should have like caught up on those things. But it is important to know that when you're going for an interview or for any of the big tech companies, it could be your dream company. The thing is, you have got to put those emotions aside and just focus on the task at hand. It is just a question on a whiteboard that you have to solve. That's it. In that particular moment. You can psych yourself out before that and after that. That is fine. You don't have to worry about that. But during that moment, don't psych yourself out. I think that is what my biggest learning is, that skills are important. But a lot of times what happens is that we forget the stuff that we know just because we psych ourselves out. So it's important to stay chill. Islands. This is where the islands thing comes in. It is one of the most popular questions that coding interviews, at least when I was taking interviews, they ask. You're basically given a 2D array of zeros and ones. Zeros represent water and ones represent land. So you have got to count how many unique islands are there in a 2D array, right? Now, when I looked at this question for the first time, I was practicing with a buddy and we were practicing on a whiteboard. So we did not have an IDE on us. We did not have autocorrect or like the IntelliSense with us. So we just had to rely on writing pseudocode and just work it off that. It took us like, we were in Odegaard. We took a whiteboard. We started like writing it down and we started working on it. It took us like a solid 60, 70 minutes to like get to a solution. But once we got to the solution, we arrived on the solution all on our own. We optimized it as much as we could and everything was looking good. But it stuck with me. Why? Because I literally wrote it by hand. We did not look at the solution and I was talking to a buddy. When you do these things, you will realize that these things really count because you then don't forget the patterns or the concepts. It is not about the question itself. It is about the concept behind it. That the concepts that are used in solving this question are used in so many other questions. And you will just be thanking yourself that you practice with a buddy. Because things, when you write, they just stick longer. So what I'm going to suggest is don't underestimate the power of like whiteboarding. It may seem that it takes a lot of time. It is unnecessary. To me, it seemed like that, but that is what I did. To answer your question, I was doing my laundry at like from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. and our laundry room, we live in an apartment on 42nd and Brooklyn. And our laundry room had like these huge wall whiteboards. So I was like solving questions while the dryer was on. So you got to manage, but like if you don't have time, you have got to make time. It's just about that, because it is just about those like 2-3 months. And especially when you have gotten the interview, then it is about those 2 weeks of prep that will really, really count, right? Continue your prep regardless of whether you are interviewing or not interviewing. I'm guilty of this. You know what? After a while, when you do like around 50 questions on LeetCode, you will start having fun with those questions because they're like very interesting puzzles. This sentence sounds generic, I know, but I'm talking from personal experience. I hated LeetCode. Like I really did not want to do it. It seemed daunting to me because you feel pretty bad when like out of 283 test cases, one fails. And you're like, what, man? Like, are you serious? But the thing is that these things will count and always be in the interview mode. The reason for that is interviewing is a very, very, and this is from personal experience, it is a very perishable skill, right? It is a skill that you can learn, but it is a perishable skill. So you have always got to be in a mode. Like it is, I'm telling you from personal experience, if any one of you is interviewing right now, you're probably better at interviewing than I am right now because I'm not in that interview mode. So in order to get to it, you have got to like build momentum, have momentum on your side always, especially when you're in college, like always have momentum on your side. Just keep on working and keep on getting more offers because that is going to help later on. Fun aside, my first job offer is something where a Rubik's Cube helped me, right? And there is going to be a parable after this story. It's going to be a quick one. But this is going to combine like elements of networking, coding, stuff like that. There was a data science career fair that was happening at Hub, right? And I'm not a data science guy. I'm not a data science guy. I was more focused on software engineering interviews at that point of time. But my friend knew that I solved the Rubik's Cube, and apparently there was a company at the data science career fair that was handing out $1,000 to anyone who solved the Rubik's Cube in the quickest time. So he called me and he's like, dude, you've got to come here. I'm like, dude, I'm not a data science person. He's like, yeah, but they're giving me $1,000. I'm like, you're being given $1,000 for a skill that you already know. Why not? I got there. I solved the cube. I was beaten by one person at the end of the day. So I missed out on the $1,000. But guess what? I beat him. I beat the other person who beat me by getting there first. When I was solving the Rubik's Cube, I did it in about, 30, 35 seconds, but that is secondary. The hiring manager was there at that company. He looked at me. He's like, oh, cool. So you have done this before. And we started talking about a Rubik's Cube out of all things, right? Networking. Your skills that don't seem important enough, or skills that you're picking up from other places, which seem irrelevant to software engineering, they can count. You go snowboard. Guess what? A lot of people snowboard in Seattle. That is what a lot of engineers do. You boulder. It turns out that bouldering is one of the most famous sports among software engineers. So chances are your hiring manager is also bouldering, right? You can talk about those things. It helps build rapport. Once that happened, he's like, we have like full stack engineering positions as well. You should check it out. I checked it out. And that led to an interview. That was the first interview that I took. And I was sitting in Allen North or South, whichever that library with the fancy desk is on which you can write. And that is when I had got the offer from that company. So that is how that cube helped me. A skill that seemingly was not related to engineering helped me land that interview and then get a job as well. This was my first internship offer before Microsoft internship offer came. I don't know, as a new grad, if you are expected to be writing like system design questions. There are companies that do it. There are companies that don't do it. It really depends on what kind of company you're applying to. It's always good to like have an idea of like how a basic client server model works. You should know that. And it's always good to know how a basic pub sub model works, publishing and subscribing, especially for Messenger. Basically, it's event driven. You should know about event driven architectures. These questions are fun. They are literally, this is going to be the problem statement. Your interview is going to ask you, hey, build WhatsApp or build Messenger for me. At that point of time, it is all about asking questions. It is not about like getting down and like starting and making like the whole app yours on your own. It is all about asking questions and getting the constraints down. Some questions could be, are we only looking to deploy to a particular continent? Are we including photo and video sharing capabilities? Are we talking about accounts and privacy and passwords as well? Are we talking about like 1 million hits per day? Are we talking about what in terms of scale are we talking about? Because that is going to dictate how much memory you're going to need, how much data you're going to need, what all services you need to provision. These are the clarity questions that they expect you to ask. And this is true for coding questions as well. When they ask you a question, don't just write or like dive deep into like writing the code itself. Ask clarifying questions. Ask about the edge cases, ask about the null cases, ask about how you want to handle errors, ask about what kind of logging do you want. It shows that you have done this thing before. It shows that you have experience. It shows that you think about all these cases. You're not just like running towards a solution, but you're taking into account all the different aspects of a particular problem. Very important. This is important for behavioral rounds specifically. And if you're interviewing for Amazon, each of their rounds, regardless whether it's a technical round or a behavioral round, is going to have an element of this. I don't work for Amazon. I have interviewed for it. Beautiful interviewing process. I think you really should should know the 16 leadership principles that Amazon has, because they are an industry standard in the tech domain. A lot of other companies have based their values based on their leadership principles, right? If you go through them, there are leadership principles like think big, customer first obsession, stuff like that. You should know all these things. Why? Because it really helps in your behavioral rounds. For behavioral rounds, what I would also suggest is, I think we have a slide for it, but let's dive into that deeper. You can just visit this link. I know it's hard. I don't know why I put the text out here. Like it's a little weird for all of you to like copy paste the entire link from here. But if you just like do a quick Google search, Amazon leadership principles, you will have everything. They, at least Amazon, if you're like interviewing for Amazon, they will expect you to answer your behavioral questions based around these leadership principles. So make sure that you know them, right? And they will help you with your other company behavioral rounds as well. They're that solid and they're that scalable and extensible. All right. In Amazon, they recommend that you follow the STAR format. Does anyone know about the STAR format while answering the questions? Cool. For people who don't know, it basically stands for situation, task, action, result. Now, the thing is, it is a guideline. It is meant to give you a framework to like give you a boundary box in which you can like answer your questions in, right? Situation, what basically they're expecting is that you set up the context, the problem space. What was the situation, right? Tasks is like what all tasks had you like listed down, what all needed to be done. Action is what exactly you did to get those tasks done. And results, which is very important, which is what your resumes should be about. They should be about numbers. They should be about impact. They should be about like the actual value that you drove from your solution. That is something that is the R part is really important, not only for this, because it shows how your code changes made a difference, but it also will really help you in framing your resumes in a way that are impact driven and not skill driven. Skills are important, don't get me wrong, but what are you doing with those skills is even more important, right? Before we get into the negotiation parts, any questions for interview prep? I'll take any and all questions, even on Zoom. What's up?
So, for example, if let's say I'm starting my interview tomorrow.
Yes.
Really good tomorrow. So the book that you recommended, cracking the code interview.
Yeah.
Would it be a good start, or because right now, the stage I am on,
yeah,
I saw we put easy, but I cannot like do medium. I cannot like just like too hard for me now. So do you think like cracking the coding interview is a good start, or is it like too hard?
For sure, cracking the coding interview is a perfect start, but just because of the fact that they have solved examples, so you can refer to it. The idea is that even I was not able to solve medium questions. Like they're very daunting, especially when you look at them straight away, right? They think that you should be solving these in about 30 or 45 minutes. They take 90 minutes when you're doing it for the first time. It takes time. So like give yourself time. You're not the first one. You're not the only one. I went through the exact same thing, and it scared me. It scared me out of it, to be very honest. The important thing is to know that it takes this much amount of time. Be willing to spend 60 to 90 minutes. After that, look at the solution on lead code and write it on your own. That is very important, so that the next time you see that question, you're able to do it. Eventually, you will have seen enough kind of questions that you will be able to tackle new questions. It is a time-based process, but cracking the coding interview is a great start. Why? Because for every chapter, they have a quick read about the chapter itself. For example, arrays or strings or stacks or queues. And they have solved questions as well, which will give you an idea of like what approaches to use while solving those questions. So that'll help.
You would not recommend using an IDE or like
IDE? No, I wouldn't recommend. IDE, okay, like if you really want to do it, first type out your solution on your own, copy paste it in an IDE, have a test case, make sure that it works. I literally, I kid you not, I wrote a binary tree node class just so that I could test my tree solutions out. But you write that once, it works every time. And now you can also ask ChatGPT to write it. Don't do that. It wouldn't help you. So that is what I would recommend. Just like write one class. It'll give you practice of how to like write classes. Because when you're interviewing for companies like Stripe, okay, yeah, Stripe is a great example. When you're interviewing for companies like Stripe, they don't ask you regular questions. They will ask you to build a solution. They will ask you to build a class, tell me what the class, or Dropbox, for example. They will ask you to build a class and add member functions in that class. It is going to look a lot like a CSE 142 or 143 assignment. So make sure that you have enough experience doing that. Not just like writing the function itself, public void main or something like that, but also knowing how that function participates in a class. Knowing the differences between, okay, this should be a static function or this should be a class member function. You should know these things. Yeah, go for it.
So on lead code, in numerical order of question, this kind of
Yeah, it does not make sense.
doesn't make sense. So
Before you do lead code, I would suggest doing cracking the coding interview and then do the 75 questions list.
oh, okay.
So it will give you the breadth rather than that will give you the order as well. So rather than just like starting from one and then going to 900 questions,
Yeah.
just do the 75 questions. It will help you with the other 825 questions. Yes.
Thank you.
Zoom. Yeah. It was called PRAM, PRAMP, but I'll verify that after the class as well. Anything else? You should have questions. Let's treat it as an interview. Like, come on, like ask me questions. Like it is not, you're in this session, you must have questions, right? You must have questions that you need answered. What's up?
How much time did it take you to grind and get code?
Could you repeat that?
How much time did you take?
There is, sorry.
Uh,
The question is, how much time did I specifically spend grinding on lead code? Out of curiosity, I would say I was spending about 2.5 hours every day for a month. I was time limiting it to that because after a point, what you realize is that if you're not getting questions, that is actually personally demotivating for me. So I was time boxing it and looking at the solution, but like eventually by day 10 or something, I was able to get most of the questions that I was not able to get before. I would not prioritize, like, okay, there is nothing that beats repetition and practice. So if you do 300 questions, you have a better chance of already seeing a question that in the interview itself that you have already done before. The more questions you do, it's a game of probability, right? The more questions you do, the probability is that you will have already seen that question in the interview. So a good starting point is that 75 list. And then what you should do is you should look at those company specific questions. They also provide a list of their own. A lot of the questions, they are just like hard for no reason at all. And maybe these are not very relevant in a, to be asked in a 45-minute interview. So you can like prioritize it according to that. I'll get back to you.
Where would you like move forward as like roll in or like Reddit?
Reddit, good resource. LeetCode already has categorized them by companies. For all I know, I think all of you all should go for the LeetCode premium version for at least a month or two when you're prepping, because it is beneficial. It'll give you handle to all the test cases and all the solutions which you will really need, and think of it as an investment in your own career, because it is possible that you will get a job offer and that just makes up, that is the ROI on that initial investment. But they already have it sorted according to companies. And you had a question, Shivan.
Yeah. So my question was that I'm looking at the internship right now.
Okay.
I applied for it. I got two coding interviews and I was like, fine. So now when I apply, I'm like kind of scared that once I get the interview, I'm gonna be the same. Sorry, if you know what I mean. Because like my knowledge is like the same. Right?
Okay.
So if I get like an interview, for example, tomorrow from company.
Yeah.
My knowledge is. So is there like a question bank sort of a thing which I can like practice like just before going for the interview so that I'm like getting better?
Just before going to the interview, I wouldn't recommend practicing, because if you by chance don't get a question, that is just going to, there's a question on, the question for people on Zoom is that, is there a quick question bank or sort of a cheat sheet for questions that you can reference before going to an interview so that you just like get in a hang of like answering those questions? My recommendation, personally speaking, would be to not look at questions right before you go to the interview, because the thing is, if you are able to solve the questions, great. If you're not able to solve the questions, that works, that has a negative effect on your mindset. And at that point of time, you should just have a clear mind about like having a wonderful day. Like just think about it like that. If you really, really want to like certain amount of questions that will get you in the groove, I would suggest just like picking up questions from the first 4 chapters of the CTCI, the Cracking the Coding interview book, because they have some pretty solid questions and you can like mark the questions as well. They will get you at least in the feel and vibe for solving questions in different topics. Again, go for breadth, not depth. If you're looking for that kind of an answer, my personal recommendation is on the day of the interview, don't be doing questions right before the interview itself.
Like, you go to the like interviews and then they give like questions.
Yes.
What language are they asking?
They are language agnostic. At least in new grad roles are language agnostic because it depends on the company and the role that you're applying for. When you're applying for a new grad role at Microsoft, they hire for software engineer, period. They're not hiring like front-end engineers or back-end engineers. They are hiring for software engineering role. You then are matched with the team internally. They match you like you don't have access, at least at my time, you do not have access to the team specifically. You're matched with the team depending on which team needs the resource. So it is very much, you'll be learning a lot on the job. Like, don't expect that whatever you know today is going to be directly applicable in the job. That is almost never true. The questions are going to be language agnostic. There should be one language that you are like pretty solid in, because, for example, to know how a get function works on a map, or to know like how to like set things on a map, I think Java is the one that they teach in all the CSE courses. So maybe that is something that you're just more familiar with, that is going to help you write the pseudocode. But other than that, they're very language agnostic. They just expect you to write pseudocode. That's it.
Okay, so you can like ask to do something and then you can just write it in like any language that you
Basically. But that is true if you're whiteboarding a question. These days, what they do is they are using interfaces like CoderPad or HackerRank or stuff like that, where you can choose the language of your liking. Even if you are not, most of these platforms have the capability of IntelliSense, so you can like complete like whatever API functions are there, for example, for a map. But I would still suggest knowing a language enough such that you're able to like do arrays, strings, stacks, queues, trees, and graphs in that language. If you're able to do that, and if you're able to like make a class in that language, great, you're all set. You just need to know that much. Any other questions? Zoom. Oh, wow. How many interviews did you do before having your first internship or job? Too many to remember, I would say. I would say I did at least 20, 25 interviews at the very least before I got the offer from Stackline. Oh, interviews. Actually, no, I just applied to 20, 25 companies. Interviews, I think I did 6 to 8 interviews that I was able to convert. And that also became true once I was able to beef up my resume with the appropriate skills and the appropriate projects. That research project that I talked about, that I did with the department of the HCD department, that really helped because that was a 6-month-long research project and I was one of the first engineers on the project. So that involved a lot of stuff like design the database schemas or writing the app from scratch and stuff like that. So that really helped me and gave me a lot of talking points to talk about. My DubHacks hackathon project really gave me a lot of talking points to talk about. All right. Next question is, where do you see SWE jobs in the near future? Do you think the average salary will decrease? Do you think work-life balance will get worse? Do you think the market will be oversaturated? Well, okay, deep question, first of all. In the near future, I don't think that the salaries are going to, like anything is going to happen to the salaries. The problem is that the market was already oversaturated because a lot of big tech companies thought that the pandemic trends are going to continue in the post-pandemic world. And that is why they overhired. That is why we are seeing a lot of layoffs. People just thought that people are just going to get into the habit of spending more time on the screen. And they were like seeing like a 20% year-over-year growth, which is insane. So right now the market is just correcting itself and getting back to like what it used to be pre-pandemic. I don't think the average salary is ever going to go down given how high the inflation is for now. For all I know, it's probably going to go up itself. Do you think work-life balance will get worse? Well, that is a very subjective question. It depends on what team you are in, what kind of work they're doing in that given point of time. For all I know, given that all these code generative capabilities that we have, you can do a lot of work very quickly without putting a lot of time in it. So maybe it is getting better, or maybe managers are going to expect you to get more work done. Who knows? Outside of career fairs, could you give advice on networking with recruiters and people in industry so that you build a strong relationship and get to the point where you can ask about a job? Well, outside of career fairs, it is a little hard to reach out to recruiters. You can always try LinkedIn, but do realize that recruiters, their job definition is to give other people jobs. And that means they're already getting an influx of a lot of LinkedIn messages or stuff like that. So don't get disheartened if they don't reply to you. It's very overwhelming. Being on the other side, it is like that. During career fairs, what helps is, most of the times, if you stand out in the crowd or if you just like wait for 10 minutes after the career fair and you talk to the recruiters, it's just like going to the TA after a class and then talking to them, or to the professor and talking to them. They organize a lot of lunches or stuff like that, or events for people for college students. If you're part of that lunch or if something like that, then you can actually build a network outside the zone of like, a career fair or stuff like that. So maybe you can utilize that. The other way would be, have a direct, if you have a direct association, or like if you have a contact inside the company, definitely use that. You can reach out to them and ask them to get you connected with the recruiter for that particular company. And then you can talk about stuff. Don't directly dive into the job aspect of it. Ask questions like, what are the current challenges of the particular team? If you're talking to a hiring manager, just don't ask that, hey, this is my resume, can you please refer to it and please give me a job. They know that you are in for that, but it is important to for you to ask clarifying questions. What does the team do? What are the challenges that the team is facing? Stuff like that. Like, show your interest in the team as well. That is very important. All right. Any other questions? This is a big topic, so we can also take this in the AMA part as well. Go for it.
I have a question that is not really related to data structure.
Okay.
More related to the topics that I'm not a CS major, I'm an HCB major.
Yeah.
And, in my course, I don't cover topics like operating system and network.
They don't expect you to.
But like some job, some internship descriptions ask you to have those.
Do you think that if you don't have an OS skill, you would want to apply for an OS role?
It's not an OS role. So it is labeled as
Software, yeah. I mean, even in software engineering, if they have that role, in more cases than not, they add skills just to make sure that they have an umbrella term so that they capture everyone, right? At the same time, no one is going to be asking you to implement Paxos or something like that in the scope of an interview. It's not feasible. It is not possible. But however, it will take. It will matter when you are they are evaluating your resume for the job. Like if they don't see OS skills over there, then it will be like something that, okay, a candidate who has OS skills is going to stand out better than you. It's as simple as that.
So, would you recommend learning all of these, getting all of these skills from an external source?
It depends. So if you want to learn about OS skills, I know it is hard to get these skills in the CSE classes because they are very, very peculiar about giving out the courses. I would search for if there is a non-majors version. If there is no non-majors version, then I would look into something like Udemy or YouTube or something like that and just get to know more. All right, then let's jump into negotiations. Something that I did not do because I was just very excited when I got the return offer from Microsoft. I interned at Microsoft, then I got the return offer from Microsoft. I'll tell you why you shouldn't say yes to your first offer, because the recruiters are probably lowballing you. That is what the job description also is. It is beneficial for the company to get you set at a lower price. It is just how the market works, right? Like if we would find a cheaper alternative to something, we will probably buy that if it's the same quality. So don't say yes. Negotiate. While negotiating, there are a few things that you should, keep in mind. Know your worth. When you're applying for a software engineering, you should know stuff like, what does a software engineering intern in whatever class of company that you're applying. For example, if you get an internship offer from big tech, then you should know how much does a software engineering intern make generally in that year on an average. You should know those numbers. Levels.fyi, I think, gives you that data. So make sure that you know and you're up to date with whatever the current numbers are. Because if your offer is below that number and if it is a big league company, then it is very much possible that they're lowballing you and you could be getting a better offer itself, right? Levels.fy is important. It will give you the demographic data as well. Cities are divided into different tiers. I think SF and New York count as tier 1 cities, so their pay is a little higher, but they also have taxes. So like keep that in mind. Seattle, I think very recently has been added as a tier 1 city because it is getting very expensive. So you should know about these things. If you go to a smaller city, then this pay could be lower, but just because it is low does not mean the average for that state, it is lower than the average for that state. So make sure that you have the demographic data for where you're applying for a job, and the numbers should make sense as well. After knowing your worth, the next thing that really helps is having multiple offers. There is nothing better than having leverage, right? If you have 2 offers at the very minimum, then you can just be very honest with the recruiter that, hey, there is another company, same league company, offering me this number. I want to join this. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can increase. The most negotiable aspects of your package are going to be the stocks and the bonus that you get. It is a little harder to get a bump on the base salary. You can get it, like no questions out there. But bonuses and stocks are stuff that are more malleable than the base salary itself. What if you don't have multiple offers, and what if you only have one offer? Well, at that point of time, just backtrack to saying that, hey, I just checked the industry standard. This is a little lower than what the industry is giving right now. Let's see what we can do. At max, they'll say no to your negotiation tactic. At max, they will say, okay, this is not possible. That's it. No one is rescinding an offer based on this, right? Their success as a recruiter depends on you joining that company, right? Know this. So you're not going to be offending anyone. They expect candidates to negotiate. There is an expectation, right? They already have that buffer and that margin in mind. Do realize that how much you can negotiate and how much are they willing to negotiate will depend on how well you do on the interviews as well, right? If you, for example, have 4 interviews and you get 2 yeses and 2 nos, and the hiring manager says, yes, let's do it, then don't expect a lot of negotiating power. And you will probably know after the end of interviews how well they went or not. But if you have aced all the interviews, then you have a lot of power, because then the manager really, really wants you on their team, right? The deadlines are somewhat malleable or flexible, not a lot. I think universities now have a fixed deadline, if I'm not wrong. At least CSE does, that you have to you have a November 11th or some kind of a deadline where you have to accept the offer by. But having said that, they can be flexible on that as well. And you can be very honest with them that, hey, I'm interviewing with other companies. This is how much time I need. Just be forthcoming with them. And if it is possible, it is possible. If it is not, it is not. But communicate. That is what is very important. Don't just accept the facts. Try to make the situation suit you. I would highly suggest doing that. All right. That is what I had about negotiation. Oh, one more thing. When I was interviewing, a lot of people who were interviewing, a lot of people from CS, they had this common Excel sheet where everyone was posting their offer numbers. That is going to give you a very good idea about people around you, who and what their package looks like, and where they were able to negotiate in which area specifically. Figure out if there is a sheet like this that is roaming around. If not, then you can take on that initiative. It can be anonymous for all I know, but that data is important because that is going to help you, and that is probably the most specific data to your use case, because you are a new grad from UW, right? So whatever other people are making, especially for similar companies, that is the data that you can directly tell the recruiter that, hey, this is what my data shows. This is what my research is. And let's see how we can make the offer better. See if the resource already exists. At my time, there were a lot of people who were maintaining that Excel sheet. If there are people who are maintaining that Excel sheet, just make sure that you are part of it and you have visibility on it. Because people have really leveraged their offers quite up. And they leveraged on stock, and stock gains value pretty quickly. It loses value pretty quickly as well, but regardless. Yeah, I think that is all that I had for the negotiation part of it. Anything regarding negotiations? Any questions? Oh, we have a question on Zoom. Can we have a relying website to track the salaries? Levels.fyi. Sure. Levels.fi has pretty much all the data that you will need. They also change it according to the domain in software engineering. So for example, if you're applying for a data science role, or if you're applying for a data science engineer role, they have like demarcations according to that as well. They have demarcations according to front-end engineer and back-end engineer as well. So they'll show you like what the median wage is or what the average wage is, and you can like use that data to leverage your offer, right? One thing I just wanted to call out before we dive into the Ask Me Anything. I know that the current job market is not that lucrative as it used to be. It is a little harder, especially for big tech, and especially for international students, because big tech companies are generally the ones who sponsor visas and stuff. However, there are still companies out there that are hiring. They are probably smaller companies, but they get you the experience. And during internships, you have more leeway. It is during the main job offer when you need to worry about stuff like visa authorization. During internships, you can tell the company that, hey, I have valid status. You just need to like write a letter. You just need to authorize my CPT or OPT or whatever you're working on. Actually maximize your CPT before you get into your OPT. There are certain companies which will require you to take an OPT because they don't want the work that you're doing documented anywhere. For CPT, you will probably have to be taking a credit class where you like take an internship class and talk about your experiences. So just make sure that you know all the logistics that involve around your offer. Levels.fi actually also has another thing. Levels.fi/still hiring is a job board for all the companies that are still hiring in this macroeconomic situation as well. So you can check that out for checking out more opportunities. I believe LinkedIn also now has, I'm not saying it because I work for LinkedIn, I just saw it, so that is why I'm saying it. LinkedIn also has, if you go to the jobs section of LinkedIn, if you scroll down, they have tiles for showcasing the top startups that are hiring right now, and smaller companies that are hiring, where the work could probably be more exciting, and the work also looks like, the workplace looks more like the social network workplace that was there in the movie. So if you're into that kind of a thing, and if you're in for the hustle, you can definitely check those places out as well. When it comes to questions of like whether I should go for a big company versus small company, initially does not matter. The grass is always going to be greener on the other side. That is what I can guarantee for sure. Each place has its own merits. So it depends on you and your values about like what you want to do with your life, right? Like what are the things that you value? Things are generally slower in big tech companies, but things are much more sorted in big tech companies. There is going to be an immigration department. There is going to be a specific team that handles onboarding, a specific team that handles your visa status and stuff like that. So those things are very well taken care of. The flip side of it is just because the company is big, things take a little more time to execute. There's a lot more planning. There's a lot more communication. Small companies, it's the exact opposite. Things are much faster. You will be responsible for a lot many more things. You can really beef up your resume. The flip side to that is you have got to be careful about the work authorization stuff for international students. And you have got to be careful about the stability of the company. That is like something where you will be taking the hit on. But with that, I think I've been speaking for a very long while. We can dive into questions. Or not even questions, like you literally ask me anything, very specific questions. If I'm very sure that if you're attending this session right now, you're somewhere in your the four buckets that I showed during the job process journey, you're somewhere in that. So if there are any specific questions which I can help and like help you accelerate that phase, I'm more than happy to do so. There's a question on Zoom. Oh, yeah, Ran, I'm not forgetting your question. Sorry. I have a career break due to work authorization. How can I introduce myself tomorrow? I have career fair. I would say like career breaks have been much more normalized, right? And people are very, very, very receptive towards the work authorization stuff that has come in, especially in the current macroeconomic situation. So if for all I know, recruiters are way more sympathetic and empathetic right now. So just show that if the recruiter does call that out, you can address it with full honesty. If you can just like go on with your pitch itself, because it's at the end of the day going to be all about the impact that you created, right? And this is something that was not in your control. So I think there is nothing to worry about in that sense. Just treat it as any other career fair. Just pitch yourself the way you would be pitching yourself. And yeah, vulnerability goes a long way. But if you don't want to make a big deal by mentioning it, I don't think it's a big issue, especially during the career fair. These kind of things matter more when you get to the further stages of interviews and stuff like that. Especially like if the hiring manager asks something like that or not. But during a career fair, I think the impact and the risk factor is much lower than I would expect it to be. Okay. Yeah, now we have the Ask Me Anything. I'm going to be hanging out. Feel free to ask very specific questions to your journey. By the way, I did not have a major when I got my first internship offer. So I was in the situation where I'm an international student. I did not have a major. And I got my major in my senior year, to be very clear, which was informatics. And I needed CPT authorization, which only comes when you have a major, to accept the job. So I had to declare GIS as an open major. I had to show a connection between GIS and my internship with Azure billing. I don't know how I did that, but it just worked out. Professors are pretty sympathetic towards that as well. And by God's grace, things worked out in my senior year when I did get informatics as a major. So there is a way around everything. Even if you don't have a major right now, which I think everyone does, even if you don't have it, it is fine. It's completely fine. I figured this thing out when I was in my senior year, and you all are already in this event thinking about job internships and stuff like that. So there is nothing to worry about, and anything is possible. It is just about like, don't stop yourself from giving interviews just because you think that there might be some other logistical blocker. Those things get sorted out eventually.
Actually, I have something related to me.
Yes.
I'm a student of masters in mechanical engineering.
Got it.
So how should I proceed if I have skills in software engineering?
It really depends on what you are selling, man. So for example, your resume, if you're applying for a software engineering job, should have software engineering projects over there. Literally, when I handed out my resume to Microsoft, it had GIS as the open major. It did not have informatics as the open major. And GIS is not that much related. It has the word information systems in it, but I would imagine mechanical engineering to be more related towards like, like hardware engineering, or you could like pitch a story around it that I was interested in hardware. I was really interested in like how hardware was interacting with software. And that is where my interests like aligned with software. And I just really wanted to delve into that passion of mine. So if you like pitch it in a way that where you sell it as not a constraint, but something as a feature, then everything works out. How you pitch it is going to matter a lot. Make sure that the resume shows or highlights the software skills. So what's up?
So you get an offer.
Yes.
And now you're handing off to the recruiter. So if the recruiter is doing or it's difficult to deal with, how would you go about knowing if you're going to offer?
The question is, if you got the offer, but the recruiter that you are who's managing your case is not a very receptive person and is pretty rude during the conversation, right? See, if it were any other scenario, I would be like, not even any other scenario, like given the current circumstances and given the current macroeconomic situation, I would advise to play it on a little bit of a safer side, because recruiter is probably the last person that you're going to be interacting with after you get the offer and after you get the job, right? Having said that, the problem is that you don't have connections with anyone else in that company. You cannot just, oh, you do?
Yeah.
So okay.
That's like there's room for negotiation. Make sure you talk about that way with all of you. And so they direct you to either talk to her.
Okay.
This is after it's enough. But the problem is I'm writing that time. And make a decision.
Okay.
And she's just like, hey, if you have a question, just respond to this.
Do it. Make sure that all the communication is written, by the way. So it is on emails. And I highly suggest, like, at max, what she's going to say is, no, we can't negotiate, right? When you are drafting that email, then stuff like, okay, you know what people who have your designation in the company, how much they are making, how much you are being lowballed, and you can also give industry facts. When you have a very factual basis for your negotiation tactic and you're not just negotiating on a whim of negotiating, you have a much stronger case, right? Of course, things would be easier if you have another offer, but right now, since you already have a source at the company who is telling you that you're being lowballed, don't just like sell them out. But I was in a similar situation where like another person at the company told me that you're probably being lowballed. But he or she, they gave me a factual link, which was public knowledge that I was able to use as leverage, right? This was, I think, back when I was interviewing with Amazon, which was 8 months ago, and they had just increased their base to some particular number, and I was being given much lower than that. So that is what I posted in my email, that, hey, look at this. This is public knowledge, and I'm not being given the amount that I would expect.
But in a situation where there are particular, for example, like I don't know the engineers there. I know like for example, I have the highest offer, but at the same time, their lead is telling me that there is still room for, because I do have another offer, and it's much higher. She said that although we can match that, you can still get much more.
Then do that.
That's my question. Not accepted at all.
It's the job of the recruiters to seem that they're not receptive at all. I would suggest actually going out to the contact and asking them if is the contact like the hiring manager, the contact that is telling you that you are probably being lowballed. Hiring and onboarding lead. Oh, okay. So she's the lead recruiter or something.
No, because recruiters are for early recruitment.
Okay. Ask for permission first to see if you can quote her or if you can like ask her if it is possible. Oh, you did? She said no.
No, I already told her.
Oh, you did quote her.
Said
And what was the response after that?
Well, I sent the email to the that's the whole thing is I have to sign this by tomorrow then. or I'm not good at.
Do you have a contact number that you can contact her on?
I can contact I already had a conversation with the boarding lead.
No, with the. It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
It is a tough situation. My best guess would be that wait for the recruit. Like it's a waiting game. It's hard.
Yeah.
Panic.
Yeah.
Recruiters will panic. Last minute they email you. Okay, understand it costs them $10,000 to find someone. They don't want to waste that money and go over their desk and go over again and they most likely said no to someone else. They will panic at the end and they will buy.
Yeah.
Should I have links first?
So should I, like you said, I should probably ask for benefits, more bonuses, stuff like that.
Stocks and signing bonus is the most flexible thing that you're going to have. Base is going to make sure that you get that benefit throughout the year, whereas stock will not stock signing bonus will like diminish at one point of time. Like those things will plateau at one point of time. Base does not. Don't worry about it. Wait for the recruiter to reply. If you don't, then maybe they have an internal employee portal where they can look at the contact number. You can do that.
That's sort of how I'm going. So got more offers. Than I did. That's why I was kind of like a little bit about it to them. But the problem is that the morning people will meet negotiation, which is the same day after the low volume.
See, the thing is that like tomorrow is the last day, right? So even the recruiter is going to be on the lookout for an email from you, to be very honest. So I'm pretty sure as uncertain you are, they are also uncertain in their position because as I said, their success depends on you joining.
I sign this offer and later say,
it is unethical. It is not. It is discouraged. It is not something that it will be like. It is not something illegal, but it is unethical or discouraged just because of the fact that you like then set them off in the wrong way. Having given the situation that they are not responsive, you have a plausible case in your particular scenario. In general, it is like discouraged. Yeah. Questions? Let me get back to you. What's up?
Yeah, so I have a question as someone entering like a bigger junior overall. Obviously, you probably have experience with software jobs. That's very helpful.
Mhm.
My question is, how can we get a good impression of our team, like our first teams, and how do we eventually start hiring software developer engineer?
So this is the question of when you get the job and when you're at the job, how do you progress, right?
Yeah.
All right. I hope what I said makes sense to everyone on Zoom. Personal experience, like work hard, but work smart, right? Have weekly one-on-ones initially with your manager, and ask the manager about what are the most crucial aspects where you can make an impact. Have this conversation that you're having with me, with your manager, so that they know that you want an accelerated career progression ladder, at least for the next level, right? So they will automatically be handing out a lot of more impactful projects your way, right? Do that. The way you conduct yourself in the company, that matters a lot, right? How you're with your team. Are you leading initiatives, right? Are you asking the right questions? Are you documenting your work or not? Documentation is something that everyone hates, but it is the most underrated, but one of the most important skills that there is. That is what I have realized. Document everything that you do. There should be an RFC, like a request for comment, 1-pager or 2-pager or 3-pager for each of the features that you work on. It shows professionality. It shows that you're thinking about extensibility. It shows that you know that I'm not going to be working on this feature all the time, and it's probably going to be handed out to some other teams eventually. And if there is another engineer who takes this on, they have like an onboarding document ready for themselves. Do the grunt work that no one else wants to touch. Documentation is one of those things that will really help you to stand out. What I did was I built a VS Code extension for my team because of with the code base that we use. I use ChatGPT for it. It cut down my development time from 3 hours to 1 hour. It helped me create impact, cross-team impact. It was not a lot of work, but there are small optimizations that you can really make in the pipeline of your team. Look for those areas. Ask where the most where the most crucial challenges of your team are to your manager. They will have a much better answer for you in that case. Communication is key, by the way. How to draft good emails and how to get work done and how to convince others to get work done. That is going to be one of the most crucial skills that you're going to have to have. People think that software engineering is all about coding. No, it is a lot about making sure that other people do the work as well and making sure that your team is unblocked. How you handle ambiguity, how you handle everything else. I deal with that on a daily basis. So that is why I'm talking from that standpoint. I'm not trying to sound generic or something, but that is what will make you look more professional and more like mature in the software engineering realm. Does that sort of answer your question? Cool. Shivansh, got a question.
So,
Hey, it's Ask Me Anything. It's
okay. So, could you give me some class recommendations that are really great?
CSE 373, coding interview class, like cannot stress it enough. CSE 331 is I think the majors version. If 332. If you can take it, you will really have to plead to the professor to get an access code for it. If you're not in the major, but if you can take it, take it. Server-side web dev in informatics. When I took it, it was some 498 or something. 441. Info 441. It is like one of the most important classes that I took. I really feel the impact of that class even today. It is a hard class. I'll not try to sugarcoat it, but it is one of the most important classes. See Info 340. The client-side web dev class, it will give you the skill set to build projects that other people can actually see and use. So if you take 340 and 441, client-side web dev and server-side web dev, then you have the perfect marriage. Then you know how things work, right? Then you can have the front end for your back end, that you have built a system for your own. Highly recommend doing that. For CSE 154 is the alternative. We did not have that at my point of view.
I think it's offered by CSE, but I think it's the same thing. There's also some algos for non-majors for CSE 417.
CSE 417 as well, introduce algos. Those are going to be more theoretical, but I think they will give you a very solid. I think these are the interview classes. Anything that has the word algos or data structures in it, take it if you can. But CSE 373 is, I think, the most accessible class out of everyone. So definitely take that. That is a very important class. 143, revise not all the practice set questions. I don't know if practice set is still a thing, or it is. Damn, they're not like updating it. Okay. But 143, the way they structure classes and stuff, know how that works. Okay, my codes are going to be out of date, of course. Sorry, Joshua. But you get the gist, right? Like what I'm trying to say. Like foundations of computing, you should know how to like make a class and how to like structure nodes, how to structure tree nodes, what it looks like. N-ary trees are important. I don't think they're taught that much out here. N-ary trees, N-ary trees. They're really important when you're doing like case matching, like when you're doing when you search something on Google, right? You get the autocomplete list of, right? Or they give you recommendations. It is not exactly an N-ary tree, but an N-ary tree can actually do that. So they ask you questions like that. So make sure that you know that as well. Is there anything else? Yeah.
So the question I have there is just, if you can speak to any good habits you developed as an engineer and it's been involved, like how you approach new project assignments, how you blockers in the project.
So the question is, my experience as an engineer, the obstacles that I faced, and how did I deal with the ambiguities, and how did I like solve the problem that was ultimately at hand? Cool, good question. Let's talk about a project I was very recently working on. We were working on an email campaign that LinkedIn sends out. I was a primary developer on it, the front-end developer for the experience. We had a lot of interdependencies from a lot of backend teams, right? We need their data to actually render the email itself that we send out. The email was new. It introduced a lot of scope for error case handling and stuff like that. And there were a lot of requirements that the backend team was not handling, right? And you need to get the work done and you have a tight deadline that is coming along. How do you do this? Because you need to convince not only the backend engineer, but also their managers to take your ask in their sprint so that you are unblocked. So how do you do that? The best way to do that is to frame your case around data. Say that with this feature, we are going to be helping, or we are going to be increasing the number of sessions on LinkedIn by 1 million or something month over month, right? You can use that data. You can show that it's a real customer pain point. It's a real customer problem. Leverage your product manager's research insights on that. And that just makes a very, very strong case. At the end of the day, if the feature that you're working on is making money for the company and it is bringing delight to the users and it is solving an actual problem for them, which is like a P1 for this priority 1 for users, then you have already made your case. It's a lot about communication and how you communicate, right? What I do is I make group chats with a lot of visibility on it. I add my manager, I add the other team's manager, not just the developer, just so that all the higher ups have visibility on this particular issue. And so that the work does not get blocked. It just does not like add to the slug. I want to keep it moving as much as I can. Regular reports or having a weekly update to your manager, that also counts as professionalism, right? If you're giving an update about the work that you're doing, that shows that you're ready for the next level as well. When you show that you can make other teams do their work, it's a lot like handling an info group project. If you can make your team members work and do the actual thing, you're already like you're doing a similar kind of thing in a professional environment. It's all about building a case. Data really helps. You will have access to all the logs that you need. It is just about like going in and finding the right insights that really make your case. Data and communication are 2 things that really help in you overcoming any kind of obstacle. And CC your manager always. Adding manager X for visibility. This is like a phrase that I've used so many times. And you know what? I've been blocked on stuff for 7 days straight. I just add that into the email. Within the next 7 minutes, I'm getting replies. So at some point of time, it is all about that. So just add the right people for visibility. Anything else? Anything personal? Anything UW related? Anything related to? Since I went to college here, I can like ask even. I can answer even more specific questions.
What's your favorite food?
Go to coffee. Dude, I'm not a coffee person. Don't tell this to anyone.
What's that? You start with a hard job.
I got a chai latte, but I don't tell that to anyone. I got it in a Starbucks cup, so everyone thinks that I'm a proper Seattle coder. I just try to belong. I'm not a coffee person. Good question. Any more questions like this? More than happy to answer. Oh, someone did ask some question. Please let it be a fun one. Is there any advice on building soft skills? Oh, very nice question. Possibly any books or approach you take? Joshua out here has a recommendation. It's called Radical Candor. You can look into that book. I would say, I think there's a book called How to Talk to Idiots or something like that. It is not what the title suggests. It's all about like making your case using ethos, logos, and pathos. Basically have emotion, logic, and empathy in your case. For just soft skills, I would recommend putting yourself out at career fairs and having that 60-second pitch. Something that actually really worked for me was doing that career pitch on my friends and just like standing in front of the mirror and talking to myself. That really helped me. It is weird at first. For me, it was weird for the first 7 days. And after that, you just get into the hang of it. Other than that, I think, yeah, it's all about like putting yourself out there and just like talking to people as much as they can. Ask questions. Actually, asking questions is great because everyone loves to talk about the work that they are doing and loves to talk about their own challenges. So that really helps in you knowing the other person more. And it also shows that you are interested in what they do. This helps during behavioral interviews. This helps during just regular networking conversations and stuff like that. But yeah, with practice, you get better. So just like put yourself out there and ask questions as much as you can. It could be about anything. It could be about like whether I like a coffee or a chai. So yeah.
What do you think about using dating apps to improve your social skills? As you said, interviews just like dating.
I'm all in for it.
So like
I am pretty bad at small talks, and in interviews it is all not in interviews in the career phase. It's all about a small talk. You have like 60 seconds. Yeah, you can make new friends on Bumble BFF. I think that's a new feature, right? It could be anything, man. It could be like the class that you're taking. You're doing a master's in mechanical engineering. I'm assuming that you must be working on some collaborative project sometime or the other, right? It is about like talking to people in your team, talking to the professor, talking to other people, just like getting to know them. That is exactly what you're doing on the dating app as well, right? Once you get into that skill, once you have momentum on your side, then it works. Also, my suggestion is that do something that gets you in the groove right before you go out for a career fair or something. Like, I don't know what it could be. For me, it was just like talking to my friends and like getting in that mode of like talking to people. When I do that, then I'm already like, I have momentum on my side. Like I'm already like energetic. I'm like, okay, let's do this now because I've already talked to a lot of people. Now I can do it. One thing that really helps me, and I think one thing that really helps on building soft skills is acknowledging your vulnerabilities, because that will help them lower their barrier down as well. For example, if when I did this session, right, I was very honest and said that, oh, this is after a very long time that I'm holding this session, so it may or may not go as planned. But once I've addressed it and everyone has that expectation, everyone is like, I am way more chill now. Like I can like talk to you regardless. So if you acknowledge your vulnerabilities and be like forthcoming about it, more often than not, people are way more empathetic and sympathetic towards your case. So that also helps a lot.
Like in my case, what I'm struggling with is that like I'm also 4 years into it, also software engineering side.
Makes sense.
So were you also in that kind of position, or were you like looking to software engineering? And like in my case, like I am trying to do both and studying ML side, so it becomes really like heavy, like to manage both things. So what would you suggest, like how can I do that?
First of all, have 2 versions of your resume for sure. One that focuses on or shines your software engineering skills, one that shows your data science skills. Next thing I would recommend is, have you had any kind of like experience outside of classes in any of these domains?
Yeah, like I'm also a master's student in department.
Okay.
So, like,
Okay.
I have a prior experience on data engineering and like as a software development AI side.
Okay.
But like my bachelor's was in mechanical engineering, so like at this time I don't have that limited knowledge, like the base which is required. So that's why I'm taking the subjects as per like being interested in data science, I'm taking subjects such as introduction to database management and all those kind of things. So like that that has been my approach as of now. But like while going for like pitching myself for internships,
Yes.
so like as when I'm preparing for interviews, so I'm right both coding practice and like learning other stuff. But it becomes really hard for me sometimes to manage with classes and all those. Like doing both things, like I have to get at certain level at least to pass the interview.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, like, how did you approach if you were like confused between the English stuff?
I was confused between two domains. I was weighing the two domains, product management and software engineering. Well, the thing that worked in my favor is that product management, you can talk about a lot of software engineering projects themselves. So it was like an extension of the software engineering stuff that I had done. The way interviews work and the way you prep for it is completely different though. The resumes work the same. What I tried to do was find common ground as much as I could, right? How can what I'm working on today as a software engineer, how can I pitch this project as a product management, an example of like an impeccable product management perspective, right? So if you're able to find a way that at least from the experience side of things, whatever you're adding on the resume, if your software engineering projects have a data science aspect on them, where you were basically like, let's say that you were building a data engineering pipeline, a pipeline that feeds data into an AI model, right? That is primarily a software engineering project, but that can also qualify as as a data science project. So if you're able to find that common ground, that will help you in at least like beefing up your resume, both of them at the same time. But the story will change, of course, depending on who you're selling it to. That will help on the experience part of things. When it comes to prep, I would assume that since you're already a software engineer, it is easier for you to pick up software engineering things because you've already done the job, right? You can something that I did was I just time boxed my software engineering interviews and the preparation time for it for like 6 hours or 7 hours a week. I did not want to give it more than that because I knew that after a certain point of time, if I do like these 20 questions, I'm back in the groove. It is like a skill like swimming or like biking, right? Like once you like get back into it, then you automatically build momentum on your side. So deprioritize the amount of time you're spending on software engineering and prioritize the amount of time that you are spending on data science because that is something new to you. And my guess is that while you're developing those projects for your resume, if you can somehow get the skills that are required for a data science engineer, especially during interviews, through that projects, then that is like the golden combination, right? It is going to be hard to do that, but if you're able to do that, then I think all your problems are getting solved in one. It is spend time on finding the common ground, on selecting a project which will allow you to flex your skills in all these areas, more so towards data science, just because of the fact that, just because of the familiarity fact. Yeah. Yes.
What was your career fair pitch and like the questions you asked?
My career fair pitch, man. Okay. My career fair pitch was something that was very personal to me, actually. My career fair pitch was always drafted around a story. It was regarding a DubsTech project that I did. One of my friends was about to be like, there was about to be a sexual molestation case on the app, right? At a given particular point of time. And I was like, that was very scary because it had happened to someone, or that experience was about, God willing, nothing happened. So like that fortunately nothing happened, but it was about to happen. And we were like, okay, this is scary. And the app is as it is sketchy. So like, how do you avoid such situations in the future? So we try to build an app where we will be able to find out the, based on an open data set, the criminal records for a particular section on the map. And when you're routing your direction from point A to point B, rather than taking you through the shortest route, Google Maps will now take you through the safest route possible. Now that project had a lot of things in it. It was a Facebook Messenger bot where you could just say, hey, I want to go from this point to this point. Give me the directions. That Facebook Messenger was the interface, which was using Google Maps API in the backend. So I already have a lot of talking points about front end and back end. But the whole thing is that my pitch had the story aspect to it, which gave impact of the project as well. Then it is important, like Star is going to help there, right? I set up the situation, I set up the task, I set up the action, and I set up the result. That is what you're going to do. The important thing is that you have to appear as a hero and you have to like acknowledge the obstacles and things that you did not think about as well, that you eventually thought about. in the Dubhacks pitch, they asked us about that. Will you be like marginally segregating against certain neighborhoods if you build this app? And this is something that I had not thought about. That is when I thought about the fact that, okay, my code has to be like willing to not only solve a problem, but think about its implications in the real world as well. So that is a pitch that I used to always have. And yeah, that is something that really hit it. Okay, then. But this is something that really helped me start off a conversation with a lot of recruiters. Good, great questions. I love these questions. Keep them coming. What's up?
You don't really have any of the context.
Yeah.
What else do you do?
Well, you need projects to show because they will need experience. Class projects are great, but they are good. But I, as a recruiter or I, as a hiring manager, want to see that, oh, if you're really interested in software engineering, then you should be self-motivated enough to do these things without someone telling you to do so, right? So what I would suggest is, like, I was able to find an area of optimization while making groups for the class that I was TAing, right? There are small things that you can do. You can build one of the DubsTech workshops that I took was about developing a full stack app, which basically gave a list of songs depending on the mood of the user. And we use like facial analysis, Azure Cognitive Services to analyze the mood of the user. And depending on that, we would give like, if you seem gloomy or something, we will suggest a happy playlist or something like that, or an uplifting playlist. Small things. It took me about like 2 days just to like flush out the idea and like build the app. But that one weekend project is something that I can really talk about. So whatever you're interested in, if you literally have an API for anything and everything, right? And now you also don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out the API documentation or writing the template code, because the generative code technologies that are out there, they're already doing it for you. So my 2 days of time can be cut down into 5 hours of time, to be very honest. So just leverage that, I would say. There are a lot of existing things that are out there. It's all about piecing it together. Have a portfolio website, everyone. Like, please, like, it's important. It is time consuming, I can understand, but like, have a portfolio website. It's a great way to show off, right? To show off your projects on a website that you made. What's up? Info 340 for sure. I TA'd that class. I love React, and gave me a lot of like applicable skills that really helped me during hackathons. I was able to like now build like full solutions. I knew how to like make front end talk to back end. I was very happy with that. Server side web dev. Oh wow, what a class! Like, I made a lot of friends because we were crying in the T lab all night long, and that is how we made friends. Friends made over misery are the best friends that you will ever have in your life. I think these were my favorite classes in info. Was there any other class? There was a special topics class as well on Android development. I like that one as well. Yeah. Anything else? CSE classes, HCDE classes? Anything other than classes? There's a logistic question.
Yeah.
It is going to be available. Yes.
Can we talk about I remember you talk about like when you were before you went into like computer, you were like a major. Right?
Yes.
You got it like a thing, I guess.
Yes, I had to declare it because I'm an international student. And in order to accept that job, or in order to like validate my CPT, I need to have a major and show the connection between my job and the major. So I had to declare GIS, and then I had to like find a connection between the job and the major itself.
Yeah. So about the process for getting like a CPT itself.
Yes.
What was the process like for you?
I can share my process. My only fear is that it's probably out of date. But the process for me was that I had to find an internship class in that major. What that basically means is that there should be a professor in that major who is willing to give out credit for that particular class, because CPT basically means that you're getting credit for the internship that you're doing. It counts as sort of a co-op kind of a thing. I had to go to the International Student Services to make sure that everything is valid. And the company has to write a letter explaining what the job description is and everything like that. a lot of these things were taken care of just because of the fact that Microsoft had a legal department that was handling a lot of things. But that is what, there were three main entities: the company, the professor, and the international student services. It was a constant communication between all. I think the ISS website now has a portal through which you can like request for CPT and stuff like that. It does, right? Yes. So that is what I had to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of in sort of like in a similar situation where I have to kind of like, so I'm in an SMS major. So basically they ask for like a specific question, like, what is like the job? Maybe
I can take this up offline as well. If it's super specific, you can just look it up and I can take it up right now because we've got to wrap it up soon since the library is closing. Awesome. Announcement? Yeah, sure, go for it.
Hey, everyone online as well. I'm Manav. Just wanted to announce we've got a few more events coming up. We've got a business analytics talk next Friday on the 10th. We've got a product design talk 15th. Yep, on the 15th. And of course, we've got our datathon on February 18th and 19th. Really hope you guys show up. And I'm expecting we're expecting your registrations.
Awesome.
Oh, good question. As a software engineer, should you join a datathon? Depends. Do you like data? Like, do you like to process data? I think data cleaning, if you enjoy it, I think that's one good opportunity.
I add to that as well. Data whiz, datathons can be about like the way you present the data as well, right? And data whiz can count as a software engineering job. I have a friend who works as a data visualization engineer. So there are specific roles for that as well. You can literally pitch anything as a software engineering thing, man. Like I know of people who were anthropology majors and they are software engineers today. So anything and everything can be software related.
I would say attend. I don't think it's a bad thing to attend it. Isn't most of the 132, 133, like as you going forward in the assignments, are kind of like data processing in a way. So it's data science in a way at the end of it, you're processing data. So
yeah, beef up those resumes.
But at the end of the day, you have to find those insights. If he's building something for LinkedIn tomorrow where they have to provide insights to the, let's say, I'm not going to mention his team also, but let's say he has to present something. Okay. So many times he has to crunch numbers and show it. My software engineer, my company, half the time is building data visualizations to go on the dashboard. So my software engineer, Andreas, if I tell him I need a bar chart, he is a software engineer, he's not a data scientist. He's building it and he has to think about how he's going to process all the data which is coming in efficiently. How is he going to give the recommendations that's going to go out? So I would say that attend it. Even a product designer should be attending it because again, you got to design that visualization. So I don't think that only if you study data science should be come. Come in even if you're a software engineer. Come in even if you're a product designer. Okay? Got it?
Oh, great place to practice your networking skills as well, by the way. Just meet.
Now he's just selling the event. Like you can see, right? The hard sell.
I'm paid to do all these things, man. What to do?
Okay.
Anything else?
How can we connect you guys?
LinkedIn or not flexing the okay. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. I think there is a QR code that I can just like put my phone out. If anyone wants to connect with me, you can just like scan it.
Okay.
I should have put that on the slide. Thanks for reminding, man. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll wrap up the session here. If you have any questions, do let us know. Do follow us and like us on Instagram so you keep getting event updates as well. So if you have your phone, just remove the Instagram app right now and like search for DubsTech. Follow us and we keep putting out event updates. We promise you no spam. Okay, and if you've seen our emails going to your spam recently, please mark us as not spam. There's one CSE student who marked us as spam and we've been ruined because of that with our marketing. Okay, so if you can mark us as not spam, it'll be really good. Okay, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I'm going to end the call now.
I'm just having